won, and we couldn't do nothing about it. And that's it.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Every few years, we get a vote, but the laws that shape our lives are written every single day. Too often, elected officials listen to lobbyists, party bosses, and donors instead of the people who put them in office. But what if your representative asked you how to vote? Before casting a vote in Congress or the legislature, they ask their constituents, and they follow the majority. Real representation, real accountability, real democracy, not once every few years, but every time a law is written. If you believe elected officials should represent the will of the people, ask them to take the Direct Democracy Pledge. Find out more at directdemocracy21.org. Because democracy doesn't end on Election Day. Direct Democracy 21. Democracy for the 21st century.
Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to another edition of Chicago Corner's Interview with the Candidates series. It's election eve, and if you haven't already done your early voting, you still have time. It's your responsibility to get out to the polls tomorrow and vote for your favorite candidate, or as we like to say, vote for the candidate that best represents your ideals. If more people did that, more new faces with new ideas would have a better opportunity at possibly reforming this Democratic Party that unfortunately a lot of us feels driven us into the ditch. Not that we are in any way supporters of the other side, but we do feel that the Democratic Party needs some very, very serious reform. We really feel the Democratic Party needs to really embrace progressive values, do what they say. And this current campaign season, we've had a lot of great candidates come on the program. I want to thank everyone who has participated so far as we go into our final interview with a candidate who is running, not representing yet, but running in the 9th District for fighting for progressive values in Illinois' 9th, Mr. Justin Ford. Justin, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me on such a blustery evening.
It is, isn't it? With that snowfall last night, you go outside and it feels like the wind's going to blow you over. But if you live in Chicago, you ought to be used to that by now.
Yeah, if you don't like the weather, wait an hour, it'll change, right? So
that's what we say here. I want to remind everybody in the live chat who's viewing, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, get notified, and share our channel as well as all of these interviews so that voters who have not yet gone to the polls tomorrow can listen to what everyone has to say and make up their own minds. Justin has a website up at, let's see here, what's your
VoteJustinFord.com.
And you know what, Justin? I actually have a little banner there so that our viewers can see it all throughout the show and go take a look there along with what we're talking about in here.
Yeah, you'll see I'm a little bit of a policy nerd. So if you go into the issues and dig a little deeper, there'll be quite a bit in there compared to what you see. Where you hit that view more button, it'll give you more. And on a couple of them, there'll be white papers that are kind of snuck in there if you really want to get deep. I'm a big believer in having a plan to get things done, not just saying, I want to get all these things done, right?
That's very important. And I want to congratulate you on having policy papers in there, because one of the things we've really been focused on in our series of interviews here is I think most progressives all agree on we want the same things. The question is how. Everybody who's come on the show has provided their hows, and there are a lot of good ideas all around. There are some candidates who haven't shown up to the program who, they parrot the same talking points. They don't live here, they didn't live here, and they kind of come in and talk about what they stand for, but they're not willing to come on programs and actually explain the hows of how they're going to get things done. And I see you, as well as the other candidates who've come on the program, really do have taken a lot of time to explain what your directions are and strategies, which is the most important thing. We can all agree on what has to be done, but we really have to have some solid answers on how we get stuff done.
Agreed. And you see that in the forums for the 9th. We have so little time, but basically we can all answer the question together. We just hit our favorite parts. But again, to your point, it's great to have all these ideals that we agree on. How do we get it done? Right? We can't just say we want to get it done. It doesn't happen with a wish and a prayer. We're right now under a Republican-dominated House, Senate, and Judiciary and White House. How do we take that back? That's kind of the step one, right? So
absolutely. Justin, tell our viewers a little bit about your background, what previous experience that you've had, what inspired you to decide to throw your hat in the ring here and run in the 9th.
Right. So I have a master's degree in public health and environmental occupational health, and I work as an environmental health and safety person, environmental health, safety, and sustainability person. What that is in factories and in workplaces. I've worked in corporate, in factories and retail and all these different places that need people to help them follow the law. They need people to help them follow the EPA law. They need people to help them follow OSHA law. But in addition, what I like working in industry for is that you can go above and beyond. And anybody who's going to spend a lot of money on something like me, it does do that. And so what my job is to make sure our workers are safe, and make sure our communities are safe. And I really enjoy that job. I really like it. But when looking at the way the country was going, I was getting very upset, especially with the Trump reelection, that we had just lost our way. We lost track. And I blamed the Democrats as much as the Republicans, that they sort of got co-opted by the same business interests. They stopped delivering for people. People were struggling, and they started throwing bombs. And that bomb's named Donald Trump. And I'm like, I love my country. I don't want to see it go away. And I'm like, if I do nothing, then, I'm not better than anybody else. Like saying, well, I really want this to happen, but I'm not willing to do anything. And so running for Congress is probably a little foolhardy, but it was this or I'd end up in prison. So I figured this was a better idea.
Well, wait a minute. Why would you end up in prison?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm so angry, right? Like,
okay, all right. We all can.
This is just a better way for me to use that anger, right?
A more productive way to channel our rage. Oh, absolutely right. Exactly. It's either protesting, voting, or running.
Yes. Yeah. And I think voting is a great thing. And I'll tell you, one of the great things about this process has been from getting petitions, meeting constituents on the street, canvassing, phone calls, doing the forums, the whole process really helps you to get inspired about the democratic process again. We have a great process, and Illinois really helps us to engage. And it's fantastic. It really shows the best parts of democracy. And when you've got so much bad news out there, having some of these avenues, even all the candidates, I like to say we're all friends, It's so
I've seen that. There's a lot of and it's good to see camaraderie because you're all engaged in trying to solve the same problems and serve everybody here the best way you can.
Yeah. I like your co-star here.
Yeah, this is Oreo. He's our stream cat. He likes to participate in the program every once in a while. He hears me talking to people on the computer monitor, and he wants to know what's going on.
Right, that's fair. And so I think it's been a great process. I wanted to get involved because I was worried about the direction of the country, kind of like what you were saying in the intro. I'm worried about the direction the Democratic Party is going in. I'm not a Republican, and so I worry about my party. I don't worry about the other ones as much. But what I like to say is we need a conservative party. The problem is the Democrats haven't been being progressive enough, so the Republicans have somebody to fight against. That's kind of the way it works. We're supposed to push forward, and then the conservative party is supposed to say, hey, wait, not quite so far this way, not quite so far that way, and sort of help guide us as we go forward as a country. And I think that the engine that is the Democratic Party progressing this country forward is sort of stalled, and we needed some direction. And so that's what my candidacy is trying to talk about getting back to working class folks. You know, I came out the gate saying I'm a former union organizer. I care a lot about unions. I care a lot about workers. I told you that's what I do for a living, is make sure people are safe. And they're struggling. And so we need to come out with a laser focus on that. I didn't need polling to tell me that affordability was a big deal. Affordability is just code word for everything's more expensive and you're not getting paid anymore, right? So like, it kind of sucks. And so I really looked at it as, hey, I can push this narrative forward, and I have through the campaign. You know, I get to go to the forums and I get to do that. And then to your other point, vote for your values. I don't have to win this race. If I get third, that would be huge. And all of a sudden, the 4-day work week, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we'll talk to. Yes, the 4-day work week, have an environmental plan, an actual plan. Fighting for unions and fixing Social Security, not waiting for it to end. Those things will start to matter more to other people, because they'll see a guy with no money that kept his full-time job. I'm the only candidate that kept his full-time job, right? I'm a working class guy myself, was able to break into, say, the third or fourth spot. What if we got behind him? What could have happened, right? Or somebody like him. It doesn't have to be me. It can be somebody else like me, But if we say that regular people can't run for Congress because they don't have the money, then they're not really representing us, are they? We're representing a different class of people.
The Epstein class.
Exactly.
And, unfortunately, it seems the Democrats have become more Republican light than left or liberal leaning Democrats who are fighting for the rights of the working class. I want to talk a little bit about your union and your organizing experience. I'm curious to know if that had a bearing on your fight for a 4-day work week, or where that evolved from as far as your labor background.
Yeah, those are two different things. But let's talk labor first, because I like labor first. So when I was a graduate student, I was a graduate student at UIC, their School of Public Health. We were trying to get, I think it was either the second or third graduate student union in the country. I was actually going around with cards and, trying to get workers to sign the card, so we get the card check. And I worked. It took a couple of years, but we got that union. So I saw what it was like to not have a union, and I saw what it was like to have a union. When I talked to unions, I teased them that our big issue was that we were upset that we were getting in these graduate students from other countries who didn't understand how expensive Chicago was. And so they saw what their stipend was going to be, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be rich. And they come in and they can hardly survive. And there's like 4 of them into a bedroom. I'm like, just be honest with them so they understand and make a good decision, so they're not coming here destitute. That was our big fight. Other people fight about wages and healthcare. But I really have enjoyed unions. I feel like that's our way of people talk about raising taxes on wealthy people. Wealthy people are really good about getting out of taxes. What they're not good about is when we've had strong unions, we get ours. We get the pay that we expect. We get the work environments that we deserve. The 4-day work week is pushed by unions, AFL-CIO and places like that. But the 4-day work week is sort of my linchpin of how the Democrats start to win again. We all know Mayor Daley, right? He had a nice saying that says, put money where people can see it. I don't care about all these plans are great. Joe Biden did some fantastic things. I'm not disagreeing some of the great infrastructure bills and the Build Back Better plan. Like these were great. These were great, awesome policies. People didn't see it, and they just saw that their grocery prices were going up. So the Republicans have a benefit in the fact that they can do tax cuts. And they'll give a bunch of money to the wealthiest people, but they'll give you $20, and you'll notice that you got $20. And they're not thinking big picture about how you got $20, but the library had to close because they didn't have any money, right? So you didn't benefit, but that's not how people do the math. So we need to put money, we need to do good governance, but we need to put money where people can see it. The 4-day work week is just that. I can give people an extra day off, and all of the evidence says we'll grow the economy by doing it. Right?
As the Democratic Party, though, leans more into how they can make their money from the lobbyists, big business, pharmaceutical companies, the insurance industry, how do you see being able to form some kind of a coalition to really push Democrats in Congress, if you're elected, to embrace that and fight for that? Because it's not a new concept, and I'm glad you're pushing it, but others have mentioned it before. How do you get the Democratic Party to recognize it's in their best interest, while they will say, yeah, it's in our best interest, but we're still getting more money from the companies that want to have a 5-day work week?
But the couple things. The first thing is money is very important, because money tends to relate to winning elections. All that people that are in Congress want to do right now is win their next reelection. That's what they care about. If I win this race with literally no money, right, compared to these other, I mean, they're $15, $20 million in my race. I got none of it. If I won this, that would be enough that the 4-day work week would become a national trend right there. Just having a guy come out of nowhere, working a full-time job. It's not like I was out there beating, I have a 40-hour life and a huge commute, right? So, but coming out with a message that sort of resonates with people. What I find interesting about the 4-day work week is I'll talk to some people and they're like, well, that's not very radical. That seems reasonable. And I talk to other people and they shake their head. That's so unrealistic. It actually makes money for the businesses. The businesses won't fight us on it. Not nearly as hard.
Can you explain how it makes money for the businesses so that it's an easier sell?
Right. So basically every place that we've tried this, that by Friday, if you work a 9 to 5, by Friday, you're sort of lagging and not a lot gets done on Friday. You have some stupid meetings and things like that. Giving people an extra day off so they can decompress, so they can get ready, make them more productive for the other 4 days. Right. And so every place they've tried this, they go, oh my gosh, this actually works really well. As I like to tell people, do you think working 7 days is better? There's people that are pushing 12/7s out in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, of course.
I couldn't function after a month.
Nobody can. It's right. It's a serf labor. It's slave labor force.
So the 5-day work week, which is brought to us by unions and Henry Ford, but that came through. And they did it because you were physically tired on the line. You couldn't physically work anymore. Well, believe it or not, using your brain takes a lot more energy than you think. And we need an extra day. And so that's why when they do it, they see that it really, really helps. So I think it's an easy win. It doesn't cost the federal government any money, really, right? And it will help business. So that'll be an easy sell. And all of a sudden, the Democrats gave people an extra day off every week. We can run on that for 10 years.
What would be the steps, though, that the Democratic Party would need to take to get business and labor? I mean, outside of unions, it seems like unions are in support of this. So is it really reliant on the coalition of union and labor to tell companies and corporations, hey, this is what we want when they're renegotiating contracts?
Well, it's not. I want to change the law. So the law will be changed. Right now, we have a law, the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. It basically makes a 40-hour work week. 90% of the country already had a 40-hour work week when they put it into law. All I'm saying is this is going to happen whether we do it as Democrats or not in the next 20 years. This will happen because it makes so much sense. But if we get a little bit ahead of it, we can just change the law that says it's 32 hours. Anything over 32 hours, you get time and a half. There's some tricks to that because hourly people that get moved from 40 to 32, we don't want them to lose pay. So if you go to the white paper, it'll explain how to deal with that. And then we don't want to put small businesses out of business, things like that. So there's some things we can do. But that's the real trick. Is it's not 4/10s. It's not you can only work 4 days a week. It says anything after 32 hours, anything there, you get time and a half. All your salary people should just move to 32, right? There's also some things about how do we, if you go to the bottom, I think there's a little thing at the bottom that says, there's a white paper.
Here you go. Clicking there. I see.
It was negotiations with people that wanted me to have a political website. And I'm like, I just want to put a lot of stuff on there.
Well, it helps people understand how you're going to get stuff done. That's important. A lot of candidates don't do that.
If people think I'm just spilling things like talking points, all of my policies work together. So the 4-day work week means one less day of commuting, which helps my environmental policy. The 4-day work week makes more people engaged in the workforce, which helps things like Social Security, right? Social Security adds stability for people. You know, trying to make sure that your environmental plan helps to make sure that we're resilient to climate change, as well as reversing CO2 emissions. All of that stuff has to play together. And that's kind of like how my policies work. If you read all of them, which nobody's going to do that tonight, but if you read them, you'll see that they're all thought out, and they all fit together into a holistic worldview that says this is the direction I want the Democratic Party to go. You know, we talk about the Green New Deal. People say it like it's talking points. Well, they just are talking points. That's it. I can't imagine anybody being against it. It's like things like we should all have clean air. Yes.
Yeah, of course we should. How are you going to do it?
Exactly. My point with the Green New Deal is it's not an actual plan. It's just what we'd like to do. You need an actual plan. My plan actually uses an economics model to help with a deposit refund scheme to help control our carbon emissions by not relying on the government, but just setting up the framework so that business does that. And I've worked with enough engineers, they can do it. I don't know how they do it, but they can do it. There's some genius people out there, not me. There's some fantastic people out there. And if we just give them the right incentives so that they get rewarded for doing the right thing, they'll do it.
And you've got the blueprints and the white papers on your website. So once again, let me share that really quickly. I don't want to take up too much of the screen space with that, since we want to have you up front. But there you go. VoteJustinFord.com to read the white papers and directions that Justin has towards those solutions. Justin, I forgot to ask you before we started, do we have an hour with you or half hour? I mean,
whichever you prefer.
Okay. I did. If you have somewhere to be, since I know it's big night tonight, I don't know if you had any.
I'm getting ready to go out in the field tomorrow and be standing up the whole day. So that's my plan for the night.
We'll finish at 8. If you're good to 8, because there's a bunch of questions here. I do want to get through major issues that everybody in the progressive wing agrees on. But again, what's the how? So let's start with the healthcare reform. Can you present your position on healthcare reform, given the current partisan makeup of Congress and the influence of the private insurance industry? What's your concrete legislative path to passing your preferred healthcare model, and how would you fund it without increasing the net burden on working class families?
Yeah, so I think this is fantastic question, because everybody wants to get to universal healthcare. We all agree that's the end goal. The problem is there's a lot of people that are currently employed in the insurance industry. They're going to be a fight. The problem is unions have fought hard to have really good health care. And if you do anything that even smells like they're not going to get as good a health care, they're going to be fighting you, right? So you need to come up with a way to show everybody and to slowly get people covered, and then move onward to improving it to the point where we get to a universal model. And it can be a Medicare for all model. It can be a National Health Service model. I don't really care. I want everybody to get care. Right now, we need to bring back the subsidies in the ACA. Yeah, the ACA is flawed. It did not bring down costs, but we need to stop some of the pain. We need to, go back and fund Medicaid so people can get Medicaid when they're poor and they can't afford insurance, because that helps our hospitals. That helps our rural hospitals and our urban hospitals to get paid for the services they give. If you decide that you don't want those poor people to get it, that's fine, but then all your hospitals are going to close and you're not going to have it, right? So my plan, the first step is to sort of stop all the stuff that Trump's doing when it comes to healthcare, like roll that back. That's step one.
Everything.
But I think everybody agrees that's step one, right? And then step two is to do a public health, a public option to the ACA.
Yeah.
And the reason I want that as step two is because I don't want to fight so hard for Medicare for all against all these people that it takes us 40 years to get it done. If you think the government healthcare is going to be fantastic, which I think it will be, go prove it.
Let me speak to that really quickly. I am on Medicare. I have a disability. I'm a limb loss survivor, and I tell everybody, yeah, I have a little bit of a deductible to pay, but it's affordable and it works. And it shouldn't just be disabled people, veterans, or seniors that get Medicare, that have all of their health care taken care of. Now, that being said, one of the big things when we talk about the Affordable Care Act, when Obama was passing that, and he had both wings of Congress. Mm-hmm. So he should have started at Medicare for all and compromised at single payer. He started at single payer and compromised down to Romney Care, which is why we've still got a system that's very, very costly for people that they're forced into. And I know that people want to hold on to their, look, nobody should say you can't hold on to your private insurance if that's what you want. A lot of people's healthcare is tied to their job, unfortunately. That's another issue, that people's healthcare shouldn't be tied to their jobs. So if they're in jobs that they don't want or they're not fulfilled, they're stuck in them because of their healthcare to whatever degree it's actually going to cover their health benefits. And we see in a lot of cases, they don't even, cover everyone's health benefits, despite the fact it ties them to their jobs. So yeah, I mean, I think what you're proposing, so long as it does look at, I think that the bottom line compromise is a single payer system where people can buy into an affordable system that is the government is supervising, and people can keep their private insurance if they want. But knowing that Medicare works, a lot of people don't realize Medicare works, Justin. That's the problem. I never wanted to be on Medicare, right? Nobody wants to be on it. Everybody wants to be able to work for themselves and feel like they're supporting themselves. But, if you have a disability, if you are a veteran, dealing with a disability, or a senior that's incapacitated or has a harder standard of life, it's a little bit of a social safety net. It's not, these are, people call, healthcare for all. It's not a luxury, but we call it a benefit because we pay into it.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm forgetting what the other word is. People call it something like
entitlement.
Entitlement. Right. Yeah. It's not an entitlement. When
No.
you pay into something, it's not an entitlement. It's a benefit that you've paid for, and everybody's paying into this system. So why shouldn't we look at healthcare as a right? As much as people fight for the Second Amendment being their right to bear arms, so what? You can kill other people or protect yourself? Okay, fine, separate issue. But healthcare that keeps everybody healthy, sustains a strong workforce, keeps people smart because they're healthy. It's just like it's such a no-brainer. But we've been indoctrinated all our lives as Americans into thinking everything's got to be a struggle, and if you don't have healthcare, it's your fault. And we got to change people's thinking on that.
I mean, you talked a little bit about the 4-day work week, right? That there's this business interest that you think will be against it, that I don't think will be that hard to fight. Now, when it comes to healthcare, now you're talking. You're talking. There's some interest, and they're ready for it. And oh my God, it will be a drag down knockout fight. We're going to have to take big majorities in the House and the Senate to get a public option. To get the public option. And so when people say they want Medicare for all, I agree with you. I want it. If I could just have a magic wand and do it, we would do it. That's not the question. It's how do you get from point A to point B? And I just see that they haven't done it. We've elected a lot of people who say they want to do it. I mean, Bernie Sanders, man, he'd do it in a heartbeat. He can't get it done. So let's slowly increase the water on this frog and see if we can't boil it eventually, right? I agree with you that Medicare works fantastic for the vast majority of people who use it. One problem with Medicare that would need to be solved, right, is that for providers, it's not so great. They don't pay as much as other places, which is one of the reasons why it's more affordable. Their paperwork is pretty high, and it has a lot of fraud. And so
the fraud's got to be reformed. But let me speak to this. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm a limb loss survivor. A prosthetic limb. Mm-hmm. With insurance, with my Medicare, you're talking about $30,000. That's almost the cost. That's the cost of a new car. Yeah. My copay is probably about $3,000 to $4,000. It's manageable. I can manage that over, payment plans. Do you know what they'll bill a private insurance company for that same prosthetic? $50,000, $60,000 if you're on private healthcare.
Right.
And you know what, Justin? It doesn't really cost that much, especially when you consider the fact that most advancements in prosthetics have been funded by VA research that the private prosthetic companies then develop and charge. They give veterans their benefits, which they should, with advancements in prosthetics and ways that they can, improve their quality of life. But then, but for the consumer whose tax dollars funded the VA research to get these breakthroughs, now you're going to pay $60,000. That's why insurance premiums are so high. So when I understand to a certain degree, providers might feel that they're getting ripped off, but not really, because the way I see it, the government is looking at, okay, we're paying Medicare on somebody's benefits. We know what this really costs. Yeah. We're not going to take away your profit margin, but we're going to basically going to set what we feel is a fair profit margin for what you're charging the patient, so that you make money and so that you're not bankrupting the government. That's kind of how I see it from the perspective.
Eventually
that's everywhere, but
right. Eventually, that's how it's going to have to be. The problem is, okay, and this is the simple problem. Let's pretend I tell a doctor that you're not going to make $500,000 a year. You're only going to make $350,000, which is still a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, now who's going to be against you?
Well,
fighting.
Here's the thing though, because every doctor I've had that I've spoken to, I've had shoulder surgeries, I've had a knee replacement. They're all from, and these are like really, really high paid doctors. Rush
They don't
Medical
do their
Center.
billing. They don't do their billing.
Well, they all tell me that there's a healthcare crisis and we need to have Medicare for all over single payer option. I wish in my experience, doctors are for it. And I'm not saying in your experience that they all are. I mean, certainly everybody's going to have their own opinion, but I've actually been like encouraged to hear my doctors who are really good doctors. And by the way, none of my Medicare claims have been turned down. Having really good doctors at local medical centers here in the city of Chicago.
No, I think it's a great plan. I can tell you that I happen to know kind of psychology a little bit better, and I know that the psychologists get paid maybe $150 an hour by Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they'll get paid $70 by Medicare. The 70 is still not a bad hourly rate. That means they got to pick up, double the amount of clients to make the same amount of money. And I'm not. Again, I agree with you. If we could get to it, fine. I'm trying to have a fight. I think I can win to sort of get there.
Let me say this too: if everybody has Medicare for all or single payer, there's more money in the pot to then not make what the providers' charges are necessarily go too low. Because if everybody's in there, then you can like maybe keep the baseline a little bit higher, so they're not making that much of a sacrifice.
We would save a lot of money in like that insurance industry I talk about going away. I think that we would save a lot of money in all the people in the hospitals are trying to figure out all these weird payment schedules back and forth. We'd save a lot of money. All I'm saying, and like I said, if I could do it, I'd do it right now. Like you and I, boom.
Oh, we understand. Yeah.
It's just like, how do you get there is the question.
So yours is an incremental plan to get there, and that's fair. I mean, with the policy that you set forth.
I don't want people, like, it's great that you got covered. I don't want people not to be covered. And I know right now people are not covered. And I want to get as many people covered as I can, and then let's grow it into something that's really awesome.
Do you see the pathway that you're proposing as eliminating private insurance entirely under a single payer, or do you you're envisioning a hybrid model, it sounds like?
No, I think that going to one payment would make more sense. Question is whether you would allow private insurance or not. My preferred plan, if I got the magic wand, is I like the National Health Service in England. I think that has a lot more government control, and most things I don't want government control. But I think that healthcare is not a normal good. Healthcare is too important to our society, and so we should have more control over how things are done. Both the hospitals. Nobody should be making money off of healthcare.
Yeah,
well, maybe you can make a living, but nobody should make a profit off of the fact that I'm sick. That doesn't make any sense.
And everyone says, well, where are all the people who work in insurance companies? They're all going to lose their jobs. No, they can retool and go serve the national healthcare system then. Those are the tools. Honestly, that's not being facetious. It's like there's those skills, that experience is obviously going to be a labor force just shifting over to another group.
And some will, and some will find other opportunities, and there's all different things that happen, and it's difficult to defend every job. I'm not going to even try, but I would say that if a Medicare for all bill comes in front of me, and it's a comprehensive plan, not just Medicare for all, and we let them figure it out, of course I'm going to vote for it. Of course, it's just my emphasis will be to try to get us to a point where that's an easier vote to get. Because I think that there's still a lot of skepticism outside of the liberal circles who all are like, but this is so obvious. And I agree, this is really obvious. Yeah. And that's just kind of where I fall on it is I want to get people covered. I don't want to have the right messaging bill. I want it to pass.
It's the only sane solution for a strong country. All right, let's shift into another hot topic item, immigration and ICE. What specific legislative reforms would you pursue regarding immigration enforcement and ICE? Would you advocate abolition, restructuring, or reform? And what safeguards would you put in place to prevent civil rights abuses and the brutalities against migrants and citizens while addressing border security concerns?
Yeah. I think abolish is a fine term. I like to use the word dissolve. Like some of these people will end up
liquidate.
Well, it sounds a little less harsh, right? But I don't want ICE to exist anymore. I don't think we need it. It was brought into September 11th, and
Patriot Act. We had border security. We had a border security force. ICE was
fine. It was fine. So I want to get rid of that. And then I think that we can the way it was structured before, we can go to that. If you're going to use civil enforcement for that, that's fine. But I don't think they should be bonded. They shouldn't be carrying around weapons, right? It's a civil enforcement.
Yeah.
There's a criminal division of the EPA. They have guns. Then there's the civil, the people that come in and inspect you. They don't have guns. They just come in and write up fines and stuff like that. So if it's a civil enforcement, that's fine. If it's criminal enforcement, it should be done by the police. And that's kind of how I envision enforcement. Now, immigration itself is messed up, right? I think immigrants are extremely important to this country. We need to bring in more. And what I mean by more is right now, if I wanted to bring in, let's say I had a brother overseas, it might take me 10 years to get them in.
Too long.
That's too long. Then people are like, then they come in on tourist visa and overstay.
The average person whose xenophobia has been exploited thinks, oh, they're just going to come in and immediately take jobs. Like, it's a freaking 10-year process for people. It didn't used to be that way. And, the money that you're spending on ICE, you can use it on immigration attorneys and reforming that system to make it easier for those that are coming in with, I'm sorry, I'm saying what I would think.
I know. I like the passion.
Yeah.
Like the passion. All I'd say is you're right, 100%. We need to shorten that time frame. We need to make family unit reunification, which is our current immigration model. We need to make sure that actually works, so that people who want to come here, have ties here, want to build a family here, that works. I'd like to see us have another third. So this will triple in size of our current immigration system for people that are coming here for humanitarian relief, refugees, right?
From the countries we're destabilizing.
For the countries we're destabilizing, for the countries that get flooded, for the places where the economics is so much you can't feed your family. Yeah. We can decide what that means, but we're going to let in some people that way. And then I'd like another third to be for people similar to a Canadian or a Australian system that are a points-based system where you bring in, hey, we need engineers with this kind of training. Boom, you get so many points and you come in and do it. People think they'll take jobs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. How do you convince people they're not going to take their jobs and that it's necessary to let some immigrants into the country so long as they're properly vetted?
Right. So immigrants end up making jobs. And you can tell that because the places with the most immigration has the most job growth. So that's A. B, I would look at enforcement of the job question to be on employers.
Yes. We don't see any of these companies that are exploiting migrant workers getting frog marched to.
Yeah, don't get all upset with the worker. This is an old union guy. Don't get upset with the other worker. Get upset with the boss.
Well, the boss is exploiting that labor because he doesn't want to pay Americans a fair living wage. That's the other thing. So why aren't people's anger directed at the bosses? You're right. We've talked about this many times. It's because those bosses have got their lobbyists to make sure that both sides of the aisle in Congress don't put out laws to haul them in as opposed to terrorizing, brown people who they're exploiting.
No, I agreed. And I think if you found that we gave people legal rights, I don't like the farm bills where you have to go work for this one farm. If you come in to work in farming, you should be able to work anywhere. So if they treat you badly, you go to the other field. And there's competition to get the workers. If we allowed people to come in legally, you would find that they wouldn't be undercutting us for salaries because they would have the legal rights. What makes them able to undercut us for salaries is the fact that they don't have a lot of options. And so if they get treated badly, they have to put up with it. If they get wage theft, they don't want to report it. This all just drives down our wages because they know that they can screw somebody else over because they can always threaten to deport them. Well, get rid of that. And then you'll see that this will be a net gain for everybody. And if we make unions strong, they can be part of the unions and we can grow this economy together and have a great place. We have a huge country. We're the third largest country in land size, and we're the third largest country in population, soon to be taken over by Nigeria. But we're massive. We can absorb this. We can do it, and it's been part of our history. It's part of who we are. I don't know about you. My last name's Ford. That's not really a name that comes out of many Native American tribes, right? That's
I'm Greek, and I listen. I am utterly disappointed in many of my Greek connections who are so anti-immigrant. It's like, you know what? We wouldn't be over here if it weren't for our grandparents bringing us over. This is a nation of immigrants. This country was built on the backs of immigrants. And just because most of the infrastructure has been built now doesn't mean you can exploit a few and then toss the rest out. The American dream, even Reagan, a Republican conservative, said you can come from anywhere in the world and be an American. That's the beauty of this country, because we are a nation of diversity. Unfortunately, too many people's prejudice and xenophobia has been exploited over the past, well, I don't want to say it's just been limited to the past 20 to 30 years. It's been an undercurrent there before then. But now everybody thinks, oh, no, this is a white Christian nation. You know, Christianity's great, religion's great, but there's a separation of church and state, and this was never meant to be a white Christian nation at the expense of the terror and just the atrocities we're seeing committed. And U.S. citizens claiming, oh, yeah, but, you know, they don't belong here. Yeah, they do. They do. And just because your skin might be lighter than others doesn't mean they don't belong here. And you might want to look around and realize a lot of them were here before, you know, along with the rest of us. Anyway.
No, to me, I look at these different issues, you know, that we've been talking about the whole time. And what about these people that are upset about that? All of this is done to get us to fight each other. So we're not really taking aim at who we should be, which are the bosses, the Elon Musk, the Epsteins, right?
The Epstein class.
Those people, they're doing what they can to get us to fight about this and so many other issues, because they don't want us to pay attention who's really robbing us all the time, who's robbing all of the work that your family and my family has put into this country since we got here. And my family's been here for a long time, but they've been working the whole time. And we built this country, and it's the richest country in the face of the earth. And yet we're not sharing that wealth.
Yeah, no, true. All right, let's shift over to U.S. military aid and foreign policy. Another big hot topic with what we're seeing and how a specific country is influencing our lawmakers into shoveling billions, maybe trillions of dollars so that they can have healthcare and UBI while they keep telling us, oh, we can't afford it over here. What's your position on U.S. military aid to Israel and Ukraine? Under what conditions, if any, would you support reducing, conditioning, or cutting that aid? And to that end, how would you prioritize U.S. citizen interest first, as opposed to the boatloads of cash we're sending other countries?
It's a great question. I'm going to sort of dodge it for a second and come back.
Okay.
We're going to go to Venezuela and Iran first.
Okay.
Right? Because these are things we directly went after. And those neither one of those dictators was a fan of. So let's just start with that.
I don't think anyone is.
We do need to follow a process. And right now we're not following a process. We're supposed to be a country of laws. Congress needs to reassert their authority. We need to have exit plans when we go into places. We cannot be spending this much money and American lives in foreign wars without any conversation as a country about what we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. Now, that said, I feel a little bad for Israel in that case. It seems like we're together with them. I don't know who started it, right? It might have been them that started it. I'm a firm believer that if Israel continues to act the way they are, we should be giving them no weapons. This is one place I've actually pushed the liberals in my group, which is hilarious because we're very far left. I've gotten them, several of them, to agree with me that there's no such thing as defensive weapons. If you're not willing to sell it to Palestine, don't sell it to Israel. And the reason being, and for all of the Jewish folks that are just turning over what I want to be done, the reason being, we want the war to stop. Stop adding fuel to the fire. And I feel like that war is what's causing a lot of the anti-Semitism as well, right? Not that it's okay. It is not okay, but we should really try to tamper it down so that Jews all across the world can have a more safe place to live, because this is a problem all over. And so that's where I stand with aid to Israel. I think if they wanted to keep their Iron Dome going, they will hopefully have a more reasonable approach to Palestine. And this goes on it's gone on way longer than October 7th, right? They've been screwing with this for a while. So they need to take a step back.
I think that, they're way beyond having a reasonable solution to Palestine. Gaza is just a wasteland now. It looks like a nuclear bomb was dropped. They've pushed it that far, which is why we've talked about this with a couple other candidates. All of the goodwill of the world that Jews have had because of the Holocaust, which they earned and they deserved, has been squandered by the Zionist party. It's a political party. It has nothing to do with being a Jew or Judaism. And that's the real tragedy here, is how this bloodthirsty political party running that country has stoked the fires of anti-Semitism against good Jewish people all around the world. It's because of the pursuit of politics, territory, power, and, as we've seen, sideways through the Epstein files and the potential blackmail that a lot of people suspect, utilizing that stuff to coerce our elected representatives to do whatever the Zionist Party of Israel wants. How do we reverse any of this?
Well, and the way I look at it, which is a little bit deeper, but that over decades, they continued to go after the moderate leaders in Palestine to the point that you end up with Hamas because they let the crazies stick around each time.
They also funded Hamas.
Right. They wanted this fight. This is what they wanted. And I think that we should call a spade for a spade and say, look, you guys made this. Yes, this Hamas, no love lost for Hamas. Don't get me wrong.
Of course not.
But you guys made it on purpose so that it would be a harder decision. Because if this was Nelson Mandela, people would be like, quit killing him. They don't want that. So they need to start to realize that if this continues the way they are, they're not going to get a blank check from us. Yeah. Now, Ukraine, completely different story, right? I'm a big supporter of Ukraine. I think that when you get attacked by another country, especially when we tell them that when they give up their nuclear weapons and we tell them that we'll protect them, we owe it to them to protect them. And I'd be okay with boots on the ground in Ukraine if that's what it took to get Russia out. I've about had it with where we've gotten in Ukraine because it seems like the Biden administration, Trump's not even better, just gave them enough to survive, but not enough so they could be a power. They didn't want to have a power left over in Europe, a military power, when this was done in Ukraine. You could build Ukraine up really big, and then all of a sudden they've got this big military, right? And they might cause trouble when the next leader comes around. I think we're too worried about that. We just sort of inched in, well, we'll give you some of these weapons. We'll give you some of these weapons. I think we should have done much earlier and just kicked Russia out and been done with it. I'm not as worried as I think a lot of people are about what Russia will do.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a moment, though, because I don't think we'd be that thrilled if Russia decided to help Cuba. We went through that once in the 1960s with the Cuban Missile Crisis. We say Cuba's in our backyard. Ukraine is in Russia's front yard. And I'm not condoning Putin, and I'm not condoning what's going on over there. But with Ukraine right on Russia's front yard, with the forces of NATO behind it, and Russia being painted as the big bully, the big enemy of the entire world, when they actually had some national interest in Ukraine. I'm no fan of Tucker Carlson, but I knew nothing about the history of that area until he interviewed Putin. And I'm sure, some of what Putin said was a little bit slanted in Russia's favor, but there was a lot that came out there, though, that's like Westerners don't understand about that part of the world anymore. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a part of the world I actually know quite a bit about. I have kids right now. They're living in Hungary, right? There's one in Nyíregyháza, which is 20 minutes away from Ukraine. Russia will not stop here. They want to take everything up to the Carpathians. They want a defensible border. This will not end. Now, it might end with Putin. This might be the end of Putin, but if they win this, they will continue to do that. That's why Europe's so freaked out. That said, I understand. I completely understand why Russia, which was a big power, is upset about this. Because what we did in Venezuela was the same thing.
Well, there was also the matter of what happened in Donbass before the Ukraine war started, with Ukraine expelling a lot of Russian people from the Donbass area and engaging in atrocities that Russia could have very well used as their excuse to do what they ended up doing and putting us in the war.
I mean, we're in right now. You've got the Nisi camps right here. People do weird things. And I'm not saying there was nothing bad. Trust me, the Hungarians were upset. There's Hungarian minorities and they weren't allowed to teach their language in the school. That doesn't mean that Hungary invaded them, right? But like, I get it. We talked about how great it is here that everybody's an American. We don't understand ethnicity in this country very well. There is ethnicity in other countries as well as nationalities. And so that is an issue. And the Donbass was an issue and Crimea is an issue. But I think that nothing there rose to the point where you had to come in and do anything. And they were funding resistance groups. If Venezuela was funding the cartels to come in from Mexico, we would be upset with them that they were doing that. Yeah. Right. I get it. I get that Russia thinks that it's a big power and it can do stuff. It can't, and it needs to play nice. America should play nice. That's why I said, let's follow the rule of law, please. But realistically, and the might is right. We're seeing right now in Iran, like, we're a big military. We don't have nice things. We don't have socialized medicine. We don't have UBI because we spent it all on this. And we're the richest country in the face of the planet. And so that does mean that if somebody wants to do something in Honduras and we don't want them to, we can just stop it. And that's not true for Russia. So I get it, but Russia needs to learn to play in its own field. And I understand why Russia was upset about the sort of it wasn't a pro-US slant to Ukraine. It was a pro-West. They wanted to be part of the EU. They wanted to grow that way. And Russia wanted more influence than that. This is partly about economics, partly about defensible borders, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, we're in Alaska.
Oil, gas, all the same thing everywhere.
Yes, that's true. Oil and gas.
Yeah.
And the idea that we're seeing another, like, part of what's going on in Iran, and definitely part of what was going on in Gaza for Netanyahu, is trying to drum up support locally by having a rally around the flag. And so they were trying to do that. I think I thought it was going to be over with quick. I thought they would take.
Well, everybody thought that. And then that's what they thought going into Iran just now, because he had such a big success in Venezuela, which was it's just, apples and oranges. He should have never gone into Venezuela, but
right.
Because Trump is a freaking idiot. He just thinks everything comes easy to him. He doesn't listen to his advisors. It's 3 a.m. in the casino. He won, and he's just going to keep rolling the dice, and he rolled it into Iran. And now we're looking at World War III. Justin, we're coming close to the end of the program. Let me bring us back to what I had shared with you pre-show. One of our patrons, Dominick Palella, has introduced this initiative called Direct Democracy 21, Democracy for the 21st Century. He has a website all about it, and I helped produce this little animated video to kind of explain what the theory is behind it. So let's play it one more time before we talk about it.
Okay.
2 years, we get a vote, but the laws that shape our lives are written every single day. Too often, elected officials listen to lobbyists, party bosses, and donors instead of the people who put them in office. But what if your representative asked you how to vote? Before casting a vote in Congress or the legislature, they ask their constituents, and they follow the majority. Real representation, real accountability, real democracy, not once every few years, but every time a law is written. If you believe elected officials should represent the will of the people, ask them to take the Direct Democracy Pledge. Find out more at directdemocracy21.org. Because democracy doesn't end on Election Day. Direct Democracy 21. Democracy for the 21st century.
Okay, so the idea is simple. While we live in a representative democracy, modern technology now allows elected officials to conduct structured, secure polling of their constituents, from our local legislative representatives and executives to members of Congress and the president as well. The Direct Democracy 21 pledge encourages our lawmakers at all levels of government to use the transparent district-wide polling tools. And we kind of envision this as like an app on your phone, an interface through the representative's website, where in real time they can stay in contact with their constituents. And of course, it would have to be secure. And as we talked with other candidates, it can't be binding because there are some nuances to what the representative knows that he's hopefully communicating to his constituents, so he can get a fair feedback from them on whatever legislation he or she's going to vote on. But this also helps increase accountability and reduce the influence of party leadership and corporate lobbyists with the direct communication from constituents to their representatives when they're going to vote on something. So tonight we're asking candidates if they could commit or would commit to exploring or implementing a system of structured constituent polling, if elected, that goes beyond the elections when they're in office. I know the average, response as well. They can always call their representative's office. Yeah, there are only so many phone lines though, and so many people that can man the phones to hear what everyone says, to like have some kind of a tool in place in the 21st century. This era of apps and being able to do everything through the web or on your phone to really have a direct, clear line of communication.
No, I think I think any politician would be dumb not to use a tool if something like this worked, right? Especially, I agree, it can't be binding. I mean, it can be binding. The problem is then there's going to be fights about what 2 sentences you're going to put in to get something in there, right? These bills are long. I deal with regulation every day. There is some detail that matters. Nobody wants to read my white papers for a reason, right? They're 20 pages long. So, and they're still broad, right? The actual legislation would be probably hundreds of pages long. So what do you say that somebody's going to read and text it? The other thing is it's not a representative sample of everybody, right? People under a certain age, if you're doing things for 2-year-olds, there's going to be a lot of 2-year-olds that don't get a say in it, right? And then older people are going to have a problem. So you don't want it to be binding because of those reasons, but I think you'd be really dumb to not do this. Like if somebody came to me, let's say instead I was the representative, you said, hey, we'd like to give this. I'm like, how much does it cost? Like, how much do I have to pay for it? Because it's great outreach, so people know what I'm doing.
Right.
It's a fantastic idea to sort of get some ideas through there. I don't think you're going to find a lot, and I don't think we want a lot where you end up with a 52% say you should do this, so you do it. But most issues are 80-20 issues, right? Most issues, most people agree with. So it's good at least for them to know that you're voting a certain way, and that you understand if you're on the wrong side of that 80-20, holy crap, I was wrong.
And they might select your opposing candidate next election if you decide to, like, say you're going to do one thing and then do something else because the lobbyists have.
Going back to the one thing we probably disagreed with the most on this is if people said, I don't want to do a public option, I want to go to Medicare for all right now. We're not waiting. And I'm like, okay, I'll fight for that. Like we agree on the goal. I'm just worried about how long it'll take to get there. But like if everybody says no to let's fight for it this way, fine. I'm willing to go to the mats for you, right? Like, let's go get it done. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems with being in a very liberal area is that we forget there's a whole country here and people vehemently disagree with us on the other side. And your goal is to get things passed. So this is a good tool to help get things passed. And I think it's a good tool that people could use. I think that if you had something like this, I think there'd be more something you would offer to people to purchase because you need somehow to fund it, right? So the campaigns, my competitors have $2 million. They can afford $10,000 a year for this.
Well, there are many
program.
And as you said, with Medicare for all or single payer, there are many roads to the same destination.
Mm-hmm.
So long as everybody's got the map to get where they need to get to, they just got to figure out what's the best road. I have a comment in the live chat. I'm not sure what it relates to, but I want to be fair because we have encouraged our viewers, to submit their questions. Ann Sullivan is asking, I don't know what this relates to, but she's asking, why did Justin blow off my senior building? I don't know if this had something to do with a meeting or perhaps there was a scheduling conflict.
If you were in the breakers, maybe you just didn't go to the one I went to because they broke it up into several. If you were somewhere else, I think we did one up. I go to every meeting that I can, knowing that lots of them took vacation days because I work a full-time job. I have no interest in blowing anybody off. You can tell from this thing. I love to talk. If he said, let's go for an extra half an hour, I would go a half an hour.
And he showed up here where other people didn't. So I appreciate that.
I love it, but you had to remind me, right? Because I've been busy.
Well, no, we sent that reminder out to everybody because as it was coming close to showtime, I wasn't seeing you here. And I'm like, well, let me just send him a quick link to remind you, but I didn't,
No, so for Ann, if I miss talking to you, even after this election, I'm happy to come and talk. I quite enjoy talking to seniors. They have a very good perspective. It's different. They hate my 4-day work week, but we talk a lot about Social Security and how great of a program that is, and why I think that we need to solve it now and not later. As a public health person, I don't like to wait to solve problems. But yeah, if I missed if it's not one of those buildings. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann. If I didn't see it, I didn't see it. Guess what? I'm going to Google right after this and find out because, I would have loved to go onto it. So
it can you know what? In all fairness, Ann, we sent 2 invitations to all the senatorial candidates as well as all the candidates in the 9th and 7th races because they were very, very heavily populated races. I'm going to guess a lot of people didn't see it or their campaign or media people didn't pass it along. It's good you shared this here. I wanted to share it with Justin. He's aware of it now. So whatever happens in the future, I'm sure he'll make sure his media people or keep an eye on things. And
you're looking at the media people.
Okay. Well, you're juggling a lot of stuff. So, all right.
So if somebody missed it, it was me.
Okay.
And if I did, I'm sorry. And I'll look and see, I'll look for your email right now and I'll respond to you. Like I said, even after this election, I'll have more time and you're willing to come. I'm willing to come and talk to you. And I can talk to you about whoever the winner is. If I win and if I win next week, we'll set something up and I'll go and do it because you'll want to talk to me, and I will do that.
And here's something else to keep in mind, Justin. Everybody that we've invited onto the show, and when I say we, I talk about me and my colleagues, Kira, Ed, and Jose. We all see Chicago Corner as a platform for the community. We want to provide the Chicago Corner channel as a megaphone to anybody that wants to come on and talk about their political campaigns, their ideas, their activism events. So please consider this an open invitation. However tomorrow turns out, you got something you want to talk about and share with the community, or get more conversation going around, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have you back on anything. Anybody, we want to have them to come on the show, because this is the corner. Come to the corner and talk about what's important to you in your community, so everybody can share their ideas and hopefully find the solutions to these issues that are, plaguing everybody, and we want to help everybody.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I think this is a great service that you're providing, and I will be subscribing so I can pay attention. I mean, we've got a mayoral race coming up soon, right? So yeah, it's going to be.
Here's Justin's website, voteforjustinford.com. Remember, the election is tomorrow, everybody. We've got a lot of candidates who've weighed in here on the channel. You can always go back. You don't always have to watch the interviews. You can listen to them in your cars if you're listening to a podcast. A lot of great conversation there. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, participating in the program. Please, please, please get out there and vote tomorrow. I'm not sure when we will be returning. I'm trying to get my colleagues together to do an election program, either maybe late tonight we'll come on, or certainly after the election tomorrow, to talk about our thoughts on everything. And in the meantime, please, everybody, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Where's my little, there it is. I just created this thing and it doesn't show up easily, but like the video, subscribe, get notified, share our shorts, share our channel. And as we go into the election, everybody watch out for each other, take care of each other, be vigilant. And remember, if it's happening here on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. So I wish you all a good evening. Good luck to you, Justin. Good luck to all the candidates going into tomorrow. You've all got great ideas, and hopefully when we come out of the other end, that stuff, those good ideas are going to be manifested in good ways with all the new voices that are looking to shake up and reform the Democratic establishment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks.
See y'all soon.
Get out and don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.